Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast as I want to dive into what we have seen from Caleb Williams, up to this point in his first 2 weeks, where the number one overall pick from 2024 had a lot of expectations. I myself was drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit. I figured with how talented that offense is that there was a chance for him to, match what CJ Stroud, which was able to do in his rookie season, which was a historical outlier. So that was definitely on me for getting too caught up in the moment there. But ultimately, it has, Caleb Williams has looked like a rookie. And, among the entire class, we've seen a lot of slow starts. But Caleb, up to this point, he's now 1-1 at least. So there is that going for him. But week one, obviously, far more about the defense than his overall play. I would say in Sunday night's game against the Texans, the first half looked really good for him, in my opinion, all things considered, based off of the fact that, he was able to come out playing on script on that first drive, looked very comfortable. He was 5 for 5 in that. And then, by the end of the first half, still the Bears were absolutely in that game. Caleb himself was, I have the stats here that I'm pulling up. 12 of 15 for 91 yards. Wasn't extraordinary, but again, was playing within the offense, just playing comfortably, it looked like, getting the ball out quickly and just taking the plays that were there for him. And then it seemed to me that there was a little bit of desperation that was going on as the game was progressing, because the Bears really weren't getting all that much going for them. The running game was very disappointing, and that's where I especially think, this idea that I was so sold on everything that was going on around Caleb that he was going to be able to settle in. The unfortunate fact is that that running game has really not looked comfortable up to this point. DeAndre Swift in this game, 14 carries for 18 yards. Haven't really gotten into that running back depth that I am a fan of, but that is probably for, good reason that Khalil Herbert, who I like, Travis Homer, Roschon Johnson, that they're just not really getting any of their touches, and they're not having success. That offensive line is really struggling. I think that both of their tackles in Darnell Wright and Braxton Jones looked especially rough on Sunday. Now, that is a tough Texans defensive front, and defense as a whole. The Texans, I'm definitely in on this upcoming season, but generally speaking here, their offensive line was really struggling. They were consistently getting themselves into third and longs, and during those situations as well, that only incentivized DeMeco Ryans, who usually isn't a blitz-heavy defensive play caller. He was deciding to bring the pressure, and ultimately, just sort of definitely rushed Caleb Williams' process. And that's the thing, is it's sort of, for Caleb Williams, it's balancing this idea of, you want to play within the offense. There is also still star talent that is, there with Caleb. So it's trying to get him to avoid diving into his bad impulses and just taking what's available to him. And both of his interceptions were sort of along those lines. The one that he had interceptions on 2 consecutive drives. The first one actually was more so just about him underthrowing DJ Moore, but the next play was really bad, or the next drive, I should say, resulted in him throwing a really bad interception where you could see him sort of starting to panic a little bit, trying to make something out of nothing, and it was him sort of getting out of the pocket, somehow getting out of the grips of Danielle Hunter, who was incredible in this game, rolling out, and he just was sort of on the move, off-platform throw, trying to make something special happen, and again, just did not have that same sort of arm strength that he was hoping for. I think it was because of the fact that he just didn't have his feet set whatsoever, and that was a costly decision. He also had an interception that was wiped off of the board in the first half that was a ridiculous decision where he's sort of stepping up to the right and then throwing across his body to the left sideline in a ball that had no shot of ever being caught. Now, he got bailed out there because there was a holding call on a Houston linebacker, but some of those decisions are just the ones that the Bears are really trying to phase out of his game. And I think that, again, it's finding that balance of letting Caleb be Caleb and show off his stardom. But as of right now, it's very uncommon for rookie quarterbacks to light the league on fire the way that C.J. Stroud did last year. There's no pressure for him to live up to that C.J. Stroud bar that was set last year, and I'm somebody who said that Caleb could possibly top that even with all of the established weapons that he had. I am admitting that I was over my skis a little bit on that mark, but it's still a situation here where the Bears have an elite defense at this point, and I was really high on that core coming into the season, but especially so with what I saw this past weekend against what is a good Texans offense, I'm all in on that is an elite group. Now, what are you going to do from there and be able to sort of make those adjustments and not get carried away with trying to do too much? Now, like I mentioned, I was so high on the surrounding pieces there. There's a lot more question marks than I was really ready for. And again, it was foolish of me. I thought their offensive line was going to be improved. That's an area that they have been investing into and trying to get better. But, anytime that the Texans sent blitzes, any of those stunts where they ended up having guys loop from the outside in, it just totally messed with the heads of the interior linemen there as well. And Caleb was getting physically punished. And that is another area for Caleb where I would really like to see him try and avoid some of those hits, those lazy sort of running down the sideline. A couple times in the second half, he got himself absolutely lit up by Texans linebacker Azeez Al-Shire, that there's just no need to sort of take those types of hits. And that's when one of the fights broke out in this game. So Caleb needs to be smarter for his own safety. I think you could say that about a lot of the young quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I'd throw Jaden Daniels and Anthony Richardson into that same category as well, where it's like you are just far too important to this franchise right now to be allowing yourself to get rocked like that. And again, especially against a hard-hitting linebacking core like the Texans, just, take that out of your game, at least for now. But as much as I can talk about, the players themselves, and Keenan Allen was out in this game, so that obviously didn't do him any favors either necessarily. But the play calling for Chicago has been a little bit suspect in my opinion. Shane Waldron, his first season as the offensive coordinator for the Bears, Waldron hasn't exactly had a super lucrative, history of being successful as an offensive coordinator. Was previously with Seattle, and it's not like he was necessarily great there. Last season, Geno Smith had a little bit of a down season in comparison to 2022 when he had sort of that comeback. When he had that comeback player of the year campaign and was really good and led the Seahawks to the playoffs. That I was just really unenthused by the play calling decisions from Shane Waldron and this Bears offense. Overall, they had that touchdown drive in the second quarter where there were a couple plays on the drive where every receiver is basically 5 yards within the line of scrimmage and just had no potential for big plays. And that's something where I feel like you need to add some more spacing for Caleb Williams, because you see as well, Caleb had that huge scramble on the fourth quarter drive when they were backed up within their own 10-yard line. The Texans brought the blitz, played man coverage, and Caleb was able to take it for himself on a scramble for 20 or so yards. That, you need open space for Caleb Williams to really fully thrive into what he is. And he has looked really off on some of these deep shots. And that's, I would say marginally concerning. I think it's something that he's going to be able to work his way back into, but ultimately, you need to at least give options for some of these plays. Otherwise, I think that is when you start to see Caleb get a little bit impatient and not be willing to sort of play within the offense. And it doesn't help him either when the offensive line is getting ran through as well. But, I think that they just need to do a better job of actually giving Caleb opportunities to make big plays. When you have the first play of the second half, if you go back and you watch it, you have two tight ends lined up in the backfield with your running back, and it's DJ Moore and somebody else at wide receiver split out to the edge. The receivers just go deep with, good coverage there, and then you have all three of DeAndre Swift, Cole Kmet, and Gerald Everett basically all just in a parallel line right at the line of scrimmage. What's the point of that? Now, sure, maybe you want to work Caleb into more of a rhythm. I think it was Collinsworth on the call that mentioned, you want to get Cole Kmet involved as well because he had a very quiet week one, didn't see the field as much. You're trying to build up confidence, and I do understand that, but you can only dink and dunk for so long. And then when you talk about as well the number of bubble screens that they are throwing in here, they just feel like wasted plays and a waste of the talent that is on that offense. I would prefer them to, and again, maybe this changes once Keenan Allen is available. Maybe they understood that the defense they were playing was going to apply pressure. Again, it was a little bit uncharacteristic how aggressive they were, so I don't feel like it was some sort of a big scouting point from them, but they need to find ways to generate more positive plays on first and second downs to avoid getting him in those third and long situations where opposing teams can bring the pressure and sort of throw him off of his game. And then, that's a couple different ways. They need to be able to run the ball better, but also just having threats of actually, taking chunk plays on those first and second downs. I just didn't feel like they were ever really available for Caleb. And when we saw the third and shorts, I thought for the most part, Caleb did a pretty good job airing it out there. Now, they were pretty easy throws, all things considered. So I understand that the way that I'm describing this is maybe babying Caleb Williams a little bit. I mean, that's probably not a very endearing way to look at it, but he's a rookie quarterback. There's an adjustment period for any of these guys, and it's not like Caleb did get some runway in the preseason, got, especially that game, I believe it was against the Bills, where he was able to play the most of the first half, if not the whole thing. That, there's just an adjustment period that is going to take place, and they just need to be able to find ways to sort of take the pressure off of him a little bit more. I still do have confidence that he's going to be special, but overall, that offense just feels so clunky, and Caleb needs to be better. Some of the pocket presence stuff with him, he's a special athlete and he's able to break away from defenders given the opportunities sometimes, but there have also been a few times where he has not felt the pressure coming from the backside whatsoever, and it's resulted in him getting sacked. He was sacked 7 times in this game. The offensive line was bad, but we can also sort of come to the conclusion as well that Caleb needs to do a better job of sort of understanding that internal clock, and not just that, but just be a little bit more aware of his surroundings. So to put a bow on this, I don't think it's super concerning in terms of Caleb Williams, the player himself. I think that he will get there, even if there are some inaccuracy issues, and that pocket presence, like I was just mentioning, needs to improve. I think my bigger concern is just with, in general here, what that Bears offense looks like. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section. We're breaking down Caleb Williams himself, but he is, of course, not the only young quarterback that is going through some growing pains. We just found out that Bryce Young is going to be benched moving forward here. So I want to sort of look at all of the quarterbacks that were drafted over the course of the past 2 seasons and rank them based off of their long-term upside. So we got 8 QBs that were drafted in the first 2 rounds of the past couple of years. We're going to be diving into their play, what we've seen from them so far, and who I personally would be comfortable building around long-term. So we are going to be diving into that. But before we do so, we are going to be taking a quick break. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back.